Good morning, everyone. I am Councillor Emily Strodwick, and this is the reconvened subcommittee on the 4th of December. I'm just going to go through some housekeeping. In the interest of the safety, if the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Do not attempt to use the lifts. Please assemble at the turning circle at the end of King Henry Street past the University Park building. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, please remember to sign out when you leave the building after today's meeting. And for those of you who have not attended this committee before, you have the running order in front of you. I believe Lisa's just handed that out. And please be aware this is a public meeting, so that members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that it neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. As previous, there is no declarations of members' interest. I just want to confirm that. Perfect. And then let's go round and do introductions. I will do the committee first.
Councillor Shah.
Councillor Ian Holder.
And then we'll make our way round.
Good morning, Ben Attrell. I'm a solicitor employed by the council.
Good morning, Derek Stone, Principal Licensing Officer.
Good morning, Nikki Humphreys, Licensing Manager.
I'm Matt Denman, Regulatory Services Officer.
PC Ben Lewington, Hampshire Police Licensing.
PC Andrew Buchanan, Hampshire Police Licensing.
John Walsgrove, Solicitor for the applicant.
Questan Ahmed Kurdish, Interpreter.
Lisa Gallagher from Democratic Services.
Perfect. Welcome, everybody. It's nice to see you, John. Haven't seen you in a while. So we're going to start off with Derek to open, if we can go.
Thank you, members. I will be very brief. As you say, it's a reconvened meeting from the 3rd of November, and it's to do with the premises called Southsea Market, 100 Palmerston Road, Southsea. You will recall I summarised by saying that on the 12th of June in 2021, the premises was granted an off-sales licence for the sale of alcohol. The premises had traded under various names and operated by others until the current applicant took control of the premises. And since taking control of the premises, a number of concerns have been identified over an extended period of time, as detailed in the representations made by the 3 responsible authorities, who you will hear from shortly. In September 2025, a check on Companies House was undertaken, and it was established that the hold of the licence, Market Portswood Limited, was dissolved on the 17th of December 24. And when a limited company is dissolved, you remember I told you last time, all struck off by Companies House, the licence immediately lapses. There are provisions within the Act to reinstate a licence, but this must be done within 28 days. So in this case, the licence had lapsed, which is why the application was made to us for a new premises licence. Members, as I said, you're going to hear from Nikki, the police, and trading standards. And things have changed slightly, obviously, since we were here last time. Mr. Walsgrove is now representing Mr. Ahmed, and I don't really think I need to say any more at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for Derek at this time? No. Can I just confirm that the application in front of us, that's still what's being applied for?
I think when Mr. Walsgrove addresses you, there will be a slight change.
Thank you. Training Standards Police or Nikki, any questions for Derek at this time? No. Perfect. Mr. Walsgrove, do you have any questions for Derek at this time? No. Perfect. We are going to pass over to you now, Mr. Walsgrove, for your case.
Thank you, Chair. Deal with amendments to the application first of all. So, as you're aware from the committee agenda, Marron, when applying for this new licence, sought a 2 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday to sell alcohol. Obviously, some concerns have been raised around that, and as soon as I was instructed, we had a chat about that, and the application is to be amended back to midnight on Friday and Saturday, so in effect the same hours as he had on his previous licence. I did notify all parties at the earliest opportunity, having taken instructions that was the case, so that they were aware. In addition to that change, I have put together a list of conditions which we would invite the committee to impose should you grant the application, which I'll come on to in a bit more detail. Again, I have circulated those at the earliest opportunity to the responsible authorities, so they are aware, and indeed the Trading Standards Officer asked for a slight amendment to one of the conditions which we have agreed to. But as I say, I can come on to those. I've got copies of those conditions here in due course if you haven't already been provided with them. So I'm just going to go through a number of things. First, just to talk about the background and some of the chronology of Mr. Ahmed's involvement with these premises. More importantly, then, to come on to some of the positive changes that are now in place and will be in place going forward should you grant the licence, and indeed some of those changes, even if you didn't grant the licence, have a positive impact, because of course we're not just dealing with the sale of alcohol here. Representations are being made about the sale of tobacco and vapes as well, so some of those changes do impact on that side of things. I'll then just make some comments about the representations that have been made, drawing out some points that I would like you to take into account, and then we can just consider those additional conditions that we're proposing. So by way of background, as you've heard, the premises licence for this particular store was granted back in June 2021 to a Mr. Hammer Farag, and Marianne, on the original application, was not, it's my understanding, was not the designated premises licence holder at that time. I think the Portsmouth City Council records might not necessarily be accurate, so I've scoured the register for all the previous applications. Unfortunately, the application document itself is not there, but the consent of another person is provided as DPS. And in fact, Mariwan didn't get his personal licence until July 2021, so he definitely wouldn't have been the DPS back in June, I don't think. Anyway, so from July 2021, he gained his personal licence and thereafter did become DPS for the premises. And it was in November of 2021 that he and his wife had the opportunity to take over the business. So he had been working there for some time, his wife as well. And the company Market Portsmouth Limited, his wife was the sole director of that company. So I think in the representation from Nikki Humphreys, she refers to a Mr. Arif as being the director. In fact, it's Mrs. That's his wife. It's not somebody else. So she was the sole director, and Mariwan continued as the designated premises supervisor at the premises. It was a substantial investment on their part. They've got a 25-year lease of these premises. And as you've heard, it later transpired in 2024 that that company was dissolved, which automatically lapses the licence. So all of those facts, that chronology is agreed. One comment I would make around the dissolution of a company, it is actually more common than you think that people who hold premises licences in names of company don't realise the automatic effect of that section, where if a company is dissolved, it lapses the licence. Most people are aware if you become insolvent, it would have an impact, but the dissolution of a company, not necessarily so. And I can tell you, I've done dozens of applications throughout the UK and some in Portsmouth where people have fallen into a similar position. So it wasn't, of course, a deliberate act. It was just ignorance of a section in the Act which, as I say, is not actually that uncommon. Of course, what has happened, once that's come to light, he's immediately stopped selling alcohol at the store and made his application for his new licence. What you should also be aware of is that in January 2025, he also applied for a premises licence for another shop in Albert Road, in the name of a company for which he is the sole director, and also he is the designated premises supervisor. And in fact, I assisted him on that application. That application went through without any objections from any responsible authorities, no objection to the licence holder, no objection to Marianne being the DPS. So as at January 2025, you've got all the responsible authorities, in essence, saying, and I don't like to use the term fit and proper because it's not actually a legal term within this Act, it's an old Act, but that's what many of the responsible authorities have referred to. But at that stage, it's accepted he must be a fit and proper person, otherwise there would have been concerns raised in January for the grant of that licence. And obviously he still has that shop and is still licensed there. So moving on from January 2025, we've then got that failed test purchase in August, which was Victoria's weekend. So you've seen the statement from the officer. Obviously, it's not disputed. He paid the fixed penalty, accepted responsibility. But what I would say is, in fact, had he instructed me, there may well have been a defence that he could have used, which is exercising all due diligence to avoid the commission of the offence, because he'd actually employed, because it was such a busy weekend, had employed an SIA security person who was on the front door, and he had instructed them to ensure they were checking for ID for people who came into the shop, and clearly they didn't do that. He accepts, though, that it's his responsibility. He was behind the till. He should have challenged because the person looked under the age of 25. That said, I've seen the video. The person who makes the purchase, in my view, certainly you would be challenging them 25, but in my view, looked over the age of 18. But that's no excuse. He accepts that that shouldn't have happened. So there are, as you've read in your report, there are lots of instances between 2021 and that August 2025 where visits have been made, particularly in relation to vapes, as opposed to the alcohol, because you will have seen from the papers previously there was a test purchase on alcohol, I believe it was, and that was passed. The difficulty I had in taking this on is when you're making an application for a new licence, you want to be able to ensure that correct due diligence and process is in place, and clearly some of the comments made by responsible authorities is that when they've checked for training records, refusals logs, etc., that hasn't always been up to scratch, which again Mariwan accepts, and I have spent a considerable amount of time with him explaining why it is the documentation is necessary in terms of compliance with the conditions, but also to ensure that he is carrying out all due diligence and making sure his staff are carrying out his instructions. So what we did, I instructed an agent, Chris Mitchener of Licensing Solutions, who may well be known to this committee. He certainly represents a number of retailers in the city. He's got a national practice, owns his own shops, was a previous director of the Association of Convenience Stores, does a lot of training for staff, and he has a pack of documents effectively for a retail shop to provide all of the documentations that is required to comply with the conditions, and most importantly, training material that can be used by the licence holder and with the relevant declarations and signatures for training. So we asked Mr. Mitchener to provide that information, which he has done so, and I've put that myself into effectively what I've described as a licensing folder, which will have the other documentation. So it will have the premises license in, all of the training materials, all of the training records, the training logs, the checklist that a DPS must be doing on a quarterly basis, a refresher every month for the staff. So it's all in one place, so that we don't have this scenario of when the responsible authorities are asking to see documentation, it's either not fully produced or not produced at all. It's in one place, it's in a secure place and will be easily accessible. One of the important things to add to that folder, which is one of the conditions we're offering, is to ensure that all orders and invoices for any purchase of alcohol, tobacco, vapes, or any other age-restricted product, although I have to say there aren't any other age-restricted products on sale, just those three, would need to be kept in this folder. And again, those can be scrutinised by trading standards, the police and local authority going forward. Now that's important because some of the times that Mariwan has been found to have illegal vapes in the premises, he instructs me that that is through his reliance on the wholesaler where he's purchasing those products, only selling legal things that he's able to sell in his retail shop. Now, again, I'm not suggesting that that's an excuse. We're just saying that's the reason why he had illegal products in his shop. He bought them in good faith. He accepts he should check those products to make sure they are compliant with the law. But his words to me are, when I'm buying it from a wholesaler, I would expect them to be compliant with the law as well. Now, with the new condition and the keeping of those records, should there ever come a time where trading standards found anything on those premises, they would then be able to trace that back to the wholesaler, because it's the source of where these products come from that need to be targeted, as well as the owner of a shop. And obviously Mariwan now is much more alive to the fact that he can't put his trust in other people, except me, of course, but not the wholesalers. So I've spent goodness knows how long putting all of this in place for his shop. I also said it would be a good opportunity if I train his staff. So I have met both the staff that work at these premises and spent an hour and a half with them training, going through absolutely everything that you would expect people working in a shop to be aware of. So I've gone through all the new conditions with them. I've gone through the licensing objectives, their responsibilities under the law. I've taken them through the application as well so that they understood what was being said about the premises, and naturally both were extremely disappointed that those were the views held by responsible authorities, because for them they feel as though they're doing a good job there, and certainly they were adamant that they would always challenge and never sell those restricted products to people under the age of 18. So in essence, I've put in a reset for these premises that the staff have been trained, that documentation is now in the folder, signed off by me to say that they've been trained. I've also said to Mariwan that one of those members of staff should undergo the professional qualification, the award for personal licence holders. So they are booked with my firm to take the exam. So they are studying for the APLH at the moment, and will be taking the exam within the next week or so, and will apply for a personal licence. Once that's been achieved, Marianne would, if you grant the licence, vary it to name them as the designated premises supervisor. And I took that person through their responsibilities as the designated premises supervisor. And I've said to Marianne, this is important because it gives a shared responsibility. So one of the members of staff who's working there full time will also be checking that everything has been done, rather than it falling on Marianne alone to be doing that, where clearly, and he accepts, he hasn't done a good enough job up to now. With regard to some of the other measures that have been put in place, his till system at the shop, whilst it was a modern till, it didn't have what all of us who've been involved in licensing for a while now would expect, which is the prompt. So when you scan in an age-restricted product, most retailers will have tills that bring up a prompt. So that gives the opportunity for the member of staff to just pause and reminds them to check the person that's in front of them and to challenge if necessary and ask for ID. So he has invested in a new till system that will provide that prompt, and we have offered as a condition that that must always be the case. There must always be a till that provides that, and that was one of the conditions. The Trading Standard Officer, initially, probably my fault, I just think I'd restricted it to alcohol without thinking, and he asked for it to be covered for tobacco, vapes and any age restricted, which is perfectly acceptable. That can be done, so we've agreed to change that. So that's another positive step that he's taken. So in essence, this application, he obviously extends his sincere apologies to both this committee and to all the responsible authorities that he hasn't done a good enough job up to now. But certainly this has been a massive wake-up call for him, because he realises that this business is in jeopardy. Because if you don't grant a licence, the trading over the last couple of months, the sales in that shop have decreased between 60 and 70% week on week. And I'm sure you're familiar, because obviously you're an experienced committee, that with retail, where you've got a convenience store, it's not just a case of having sort of alcohol as a standalone product. It's part and parcel of buying alcohol and other products. The core set of products that people want to get all under one roof. So where alcohol would make up approximately 20% of his gross sales in a week, where he hasn't been able to sell that for a couple of months, obviously people are now going elsewhere to buy everything else as well. So that's why his overall gross sales have dropped significantly. The shop isn't actually sustainable without a premises licence. So it would inevitably lead to a closure, the loss of jobs for the 2 full-time staff, and obviously a loss of revenue for Marijuana. So he has suffered already some considerable financial loss, which I'm sure you would say he deserves as an effective punishment for not getting things right. But what he would ask you to consider is to look at the future, and now he has had considerable input from me to know and have confidence that he can run that business with that reset and with the additional measures that he's put in place to ensure that no longer is there any risk that there would be illegal tobacco or vapes on the premises. It's not accepted that this shop was a particular target for young people, despite the comments that's made in various correspondence in the pack. And in relation to that, the only comment I've got to make is, in my view, the evidential burden that's placed and the standard of proof is not sufficient for you to, as a finding of fact, establish that this was a shop which was targeted by young people and regularly sold to persons under the age of 18. The only evidence you've got before you is the failed test purchase in August. And as I say, in my view, he actually had a defence to that charge, although he has paid the penalty and so has to accept that that offence did occur. So in terms of the conditions, we've offered all the conditions that were on the licence previously as a given, which includes all the standard things about Challenge 25, CCTV, etc. The shop does have its relevant Challenge 25 notices up to advise customers, and it's got its training login, refusal logs, etc., etc. Also the conditions regarding the high-strength beer, cider and lager to be added. The additional conditions, I've put in there a condition that no deliveries should be made from the premises. So delivery of alcohol has become much more of a commonplace thing since COVID, done by many retailers, and in fact, for me as a lawyer, that is the most unregulated part of the entire licensing system is deliveries. There is nothing in the Act which is specific enough to deliveries. There's something in the Section 182 guidance. I don't think that goes far enough. So I didn't want this committee to have any concerns or worries that Marion might be doing deliveries of alcohol or tobacco or vapes from these premises, because it has inherent problems about the end user and the delivery, because believe it or not, it's actually not illegal to deliver alcohol to a person under the age of 18. So it's only the sale that has to be, that's why it's such a complicated area of law. It's woefully short of where it should be. Why the government haven't changed it, I don't know. I'm removing all of that worry and risk by saying, put a condition on the licence, he can't do deliveries of anything. The one I've already mentioned is about the till prompt, so have that as a condition on the licence to make sure it gives that pause every time an age-restricted product is put in. The person behind the till, it's not just a case of, I think it was described as head down too busy. Can't do that, because you're going to have to use the functions on the till to be able to either accept the sale or refuse it. And obviously if it's refused, it automatically registers that on the till. But what I've trained the staff to do, and what they will do in the future, is although there will be that electronic record, is that they should still complete the manual refusal log, because it does add some more information, particularly the description of the individual. And when I was training the two members of staff, they did say there is one lad who has been in 2 or 3 times over the last, well, when they were selling alcohol, of course, the 2 or 3 months before, who had come in at different times trying to buy alcohol. And obviously what they're able to do is then have a chat to each other and sort of say, I'm not going to describe him, but it was quite an obvious description of who this youth is, to make sure that the other members of staff are alive to the fact that does happen, and that they should be aware of it. So both members of staff have been told, you've got to be looking at the refusal book. Obviously, marijuana's DPS will, until his member of staff becomes the DPS, and then they'll have a responsibility to obviously pass information on, make it available. The next condition was regarding the invoices, which I've mentioned, about being able to track exactly where he's purchasing all of his goods, which is for his protection, but also will be good information for trading standards and the police in the event that there's any suggestion that any products on his premises are being sold illegally. And then finally, as I noted that in some of the correspondence, it mentioned young women buying vodka. We put in a condition there that all spirits should be behind the counter. So no spirits available for self-selection at all, which actually is quite a common condition for a retail shop. But again, this is all about trying to prevent risk. So if someone is buying spirits, the person serving them has that extra time to be able to evaluate their age and ask them for relevant ID if they need to. So in short, I think that's the application. We ask you to grant the licence for the hours that you had previously, which is up to midnight during the week, to add the list of conditions, and if you need that list, I've got some hard copies here if you haven't been provided them already, so with those extra conditions. As I've said to you, his member of staff will come on to the licence as the DPS as soon as they've got their personal licence, which we hope would be within about 2 weeks. Once they've done their exam with us, obviously we've got to do a criminal record check, and that takes about a week at the moment to get that, and then they will be named as the designated premises supervisor. And I think I'll leave it there, other than to say, again, sincere thanks for the City Council for arranging for the interpreter to be here. You'll note that she's not been translating while I'm speaking. That's because, and I'll say it for the record, that's because I have been through everything in great detail with Mariwan myself. He knew exactly what I was going to be saying. He knows exactly what everybody else has said, because it's obviously all documented. So for the interpreter, her role will come in if you have any questions that require an answer that I haven't already told him about, or if any of the information given by the responsible authorities in a moment takes me by surprise, then I will need her to translate that, and I will need to get some instructions. So we may need to pause then, but sincere thanks for getting the interpreter, because we would have had a much longer morning without her being here. And that's my representations.
No problem at all. Thank you, John. I've just got a question. You mentioned about the dates and then your client not being there, and then you said he worked there for a long time. Can I just get a clarification of how long your client has worked at this premises?
So he's been there from day one, so from June. I'm not entirely sure the date he became DPS, so I searched through all the applications, but I couldn't find exactly when he became DPS. But I do know, because I've seen his personal licence, that was granted on the 8th of July, so he wouldn't have become the DPS before the 8th of July. It could have been any time after that date.
Thank you. And then you mentioned on Victorious Weekend, your client had hired door staff to be checking IDs. Now, there's not been any reference in any of the statements about the Victorious Weekend, nor was when they were asked. All's been said is it was a festival weekend and we were too busy to do checks. Would that not have been something your client would have said to the police, we've got someone on the door?
It would have been, and as you will realise, Mr. Marwan's English is fairly limited, and he has said to me that in conversations with police officers and trading standards, because I asked him exactly the same question. I was surprised when he told me that someone was there, and in fact asked him if he was certain, and when I then trained the two members of staff, one of them was working that day as well, and she said there was definitely a female door supervisor. So yes, of course he should have mentioned it, but he just gave the answer that he did give. There's definitely some difficulty in communication in him being able to express himself fully. Certainly in taking instructions, you do have to go over everything sort of 2 or 3 times. So he's got sufficient English of understanding and speaking English to be able to serve a customer in a shop, ask for ID, etc. But you know, when faced with authority, there is a difficulty in understanding what he needs to be conveying in terms of that information.
Okay, and then there's been a lot of reference regarding CCTV and not being sent across, and also the owner doesn't know how to use CCTV. Obviously, this is a big red flag as it's very important for licensing. 1, why was it not sent over? And 2, does he know how to use it now?
He does know how to use it, and also the staff know how to use it. I made sure of that when I was training them. So he said he did know how to use it, and he could download. The reason he sent, I think it was short clips in, was that he could give those instantaneously. What he tried to explain, but quite clearly didn't explain, was I think he'd been asked for several hours of CCTV, and he said that he knew that would take a long time to actually download and provide. And what he wasn't able to do was communicate that to the officers to say, actually, I'm going to need more time to be able to do that and send it to you. I think eventually he says CCTV has been sent through to the police. He accepts that there was a delay. He can only apologise for that. I've explained the whole ethos behind the urgency when it's requested. It's not a case of just providing it as and when you've managed to download it. They're investigating offences, they need it immediately. So he can use it, the members of staff can use it. That can be downloaded quickly, it can be viewed. Obviously, he said whenever the officer's been there, he has shown them the CCTV. They've been able to view whatever it is they've wanted, but where they wanted that 3 hours, that's where he would need more time, and obviously he didn't explain himself very well.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions?
No, just following on from that. It was also noted in the report that the time was out on the CCTV, sort of implying it wasn't being maintained. Has that changed? Is that now being serviced properly?
It is. I mean, he has to accept that was the case. It wasn't something that he would check in terms of the time, just the date. And I've said to him, you know, it's absolutely critical that you've got to check it. I mean, he's got the CCTV on. It's quite a sophisticated system. He's got it on his phone. It literally takes him 2 minutes. He doesn't even have to go into the shop. He can check. It's got the time and date there. So it wasn't correct. It should have been corrected. He didn't do so. He accepts that. But what I'm saying to you is please look to the future. All these things have been ironed out and are now in place, and relevant checks are being carried out to make sure that if it is faulty, he's going to know about that on the day, and he's going to be able to contact the CCTV people to come and rectify it.
Just a quick one. From the day one to the last visit made by the officers, I couldn't see any improvement during that time. That's a long time to improve. Anything means any issues were raised or concern were raised. There was no improvement.
Yeah, I mean that's not quite right, because in the information you will have read that on a couple of occasions when inspections have been carried out, improvements had been made, and you know, in relation to CCTV, that a new system had been installed following some issues with it previously. So what has happened is, over the course of that time, is that Marijuana has obviously had some advice, has then made some improvements, but then has slipped back into, you know, poor standards of record keeping. And we're at a point where now he's got professional advice to reset effectively. And I've said to him, look, if the committee accept your plea for them to grant the licence to allow your business to continue rather than everybody losing their jobs, you know that in a couple of months' time, after the licence has been granted, you will be inspected, everything will get checked. And if you've let your standards slip, either then or on future visits, there's absolutely no question that it would be reviewed and the licence would go. And I've made it very clear to him, you know, in those circumstances, there's nothing anybody can do. This would be the last chance, and you, I'm sure, will say he's had a couple of last chances already, and I think that must be fair. He has had considerable input both from the police and trading standards. But, as I say, he's kind of put his faith in the fact that in terms of the vapes, he's been getting those from wholesalers, and in terms of the alcohol, he knows that his staff know what they're doing. The fact that he hasn't documented training is important, but for him, he was entirely confident that they would be doing what they were doing. And I've explained to him that that isn't good enough. You're not getting to the right bar, the right professional standards to be that licence holder. So that's what we're saying from now on, with my support, that should be all in place and regularly complied with. He has asked me to continue to have support with him. So in terms of ensuring the training is done on that basis. So I've never done this for a client before, but he's asked me to do it, and I've agreed to do it. We will diarise when he needs to be doing his retraining. As soon as he employs anybody new in the shop, he will contact me. He's even said that if need be, either the DPS, who's going to get a personal licence, will do the training, or I will do the training for those staff. So it is a completely different ball game, and I accept the concerns that you're expressing, because when I read the papers, frankly, I didn't think there was any chance, because I said to Mariwan, if you carried on like this, you don't deserve to have a licence. There's lots of people in this city that operate shops to a very high standard under their licensing, and it's not fair on everybody else that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And you, if you get this license, you have to absolutely be all over it from now on with my support. And of course, you know, he's got the other shop to consider as well, because naturally, I've said to him, if this application is either granted or refused, you've still got the other shop, which has got a premises licence. So no matter what the decision of this committee, you've got to make sure that everything is up to scratch in that shop, and be like the other licence holders of Portsmouth, be professional. Make sure your staff are professional. And I was impressed with the two ladies he employs. They certainly knew their stuff. One who is going to be the DPS had worked for the co-op for quite a long period of time before joining Mariwan, and they were both really enthused by this reset and the measures that have been put in place, and the pack of documents that is just going to be in one folder. They know where everything is. They can refer back to training materials, etc., etc. So apologies for the long-winded answer, but Marianne knows that this is a real plea to you, and he is fighting for his business life, but also fighting for his family, because if he loses this shop, which he will if you don't grant the licence, then those financial implications will have a severe effect on his family as well.
Thank you. I am just going to slightly follow up on that, although that was a very good response. I know you said that there has been reference to things being improved. Yes, however, every time a new responsible authority comes to the premises, there was something wrong. So back in 2022, when he was the DPS, there was 7 breaches. Then it was sorted. Then the police turned up. The CCTV noted that the timings were incorrect. Then obviously they've come back. There's a new CCTV system that's been installed. Then the next day it was training standards, and then there was another issue. So that's where my head's at the minute. Yes, there's improvement, and then it's like they go, right, we're in the clear, and then something else is going wrong. And this has been continual. So yeah, that's kind of, I'm just putting it in that. So yes, there was improvements, but then every time a new person comes in, there's been something wrong. So it's how we're going to kind of, if we did maintain that level of standard, that, as you rightly say, that everyone else in Portsmouth holds us to and keeps to.
A very difficult question to answer, because of course we're looking into the future. As I said, he accepts entirely that there were periods of time where he would improve and do everything right, and then it would slip, and exactly as you've described, it's in the papers. There's no dispute about that. What he hasn't had is the professional support that I've now put in and will be putting in, and also you'll recall I said in January he got a new licence for another shop, and DPS, without any concerns being raised at the time, he knows that licence is kind of on the line as well. So it's not just that if you granted this licence, it's not a last chance for this shop, it's a last chance for both shops, because of course if there were to be a review of this licence, it's highly likely there would be a review of the other licence as well. So I think with that clearer thought in mind, that could give you the confidence that actually the improvements that are going or have been made will be consistently enforced going forward. because he'll have, you know, my firm's support, so we'll be there to assist as and when required.
Thank you. Members, do you have any more questions? No? Responsible authorities, do you have any questions? Anyone? Yeah.
You've made reference to Mr. Ahmed's other shop in Albert Road. It's been open since January. You said there's not been any issues there. To the best of my knowledge, I don't know of any issues. So the question is if he's got that second shop that is being run so well, how come he's allowed the shop in Palmerston Road to be run in such a poor way?
I'm trying to find the right words to phrase this without too much prejudice to my client. Let's just say some improvements had to be made in relation to documentation at his other shop as well. So whilst he's had no issues in terms of allegations about underage sales or illicit goods, you know, on making some checks, we did need to make some improvement there as well.
Thank you. No other questions from me.
Perfect. So I'm going to pass on to responsible authorities case. Who wants to go first? I know last time Nikki was going to go first because of the funeral, but should we start with that one? Yeah? Yeah.
Thank you, members. To clarify, I've had the opportunity with the query on when Mr. Ahmed was a DPS and when he got his licence. Just for the record, members, Marianne became DPS at these premises on the 20th of August 2021, and he was granted his personal licence on the 8th of July 2021. So apologies for any inaccuracies in my representation, but I hope that now clarifies it. I think in terms of my representation today is to focus in on the issues that have given rise to concern. So we are looking at a number of occasions since 2022 where we found non-compliance at these premises, along with our colleagues in the police and trading standards. I'm not going to go into those areas because obviously they're here to make those representations themselves. But there are significant concerns on behalf of the licensing authority of the extent of the non-compliance. I note, obviously, that Mr. Walsgrove has said he's taken Mr. Ahmed under his wing and that he's had clear and concise advice about how he should run the premises. But I'll refer you to page 30 of the bundle. Miss Ahmed had, not with Mr. Walsgrove, I accept, it was with another legal advisor, but Mr. Ahmed has had this opportunity before. Certainly from our engagement with him and his legal advisor, there is a similarity to that point that it did bring up an improvement, but then it has lapsed yet again since 2022, and further offences in terms of the illegal vapes, the CCTV not being able to be provided, and obviously test purchase failures. Whilst I would like to see that the efforts that Mr. Walsgrove has made and the recommendations that he's putting forward for you to consider proposed conditions, unfortunately we have an evidenced pattern of behaviour that, notwithstanding the best advice that Mr. Ahmed can possibly get, Mr. Walsgrove will not be there on a day-to-day basis, and there is a risk, as far as we're concerned, that those masses of non-compliance could re-emerge as they have done since 2022. So I have given consideration to the proposals, but I think based on our previous experiences that we have to say that I haven't got any confidence even with Mr Walsgrove's best efforts, that this will be the turnaround in terms of the way these premises have been managed. I also just wanted to mention as well, Mr Walsgrove mentioned about Mr Ahmed's personal circumstances and his family. If this licence was to be refused, as is the recommendation of the licensing authority, you may wish to speak or ask Ben for advice on this particular issue, because those matters, any personal circumstances, are irrelevant to the decision that you're going to make today. You must not take those into account when making your decision. I'm sure Ben will reinforce that when it's appropriate to do so. And really, that's as summarised as I can get it for you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for Nikki at this time? No? Mr Walsgrove, do you have any questions for Nikki? No.
Chair, I generally prefer to give advice in open session wherever and whenever possible. So far as personal finances are concerned, it's not quite as clear-cut as it would be if you were considering a taxi case, where clearly you're not to consider the personal circumstances, and certainly if you were considering a review of the premises, the guidance does say that you need to take the financial implications of the steps that you're proposing into account. Generally speaking, it's probably not something that you ought to be attaching a considerable amount of weight to, but at the same time, I wouldn't go so far as to say you need to completely rule it out of your decision making. I don't think there's really an awful lot more detail that I can give you on that, but I don't know if there's any comment from Mr Walsgrove on that.
Just one comment. The reason I mentioned it is twofold. Firstly, you will have read that had the licence not lapsed and this new application been submitted, a review would have followed. And as your legal advisor has pointed out, the Section 182 guidance makes it very clear that on a review, financial impact of any decision you make on a review is absolutely relevant. So that's one reason. But the main reason, I expressed it and clearly wasn't eloquent enough in doing so, was the motivation for Mr Ahmed to make sure he gets things right. I don't think up to now he's actually realised that not only does losing, the licence effectively mean his business won't succeed, but having sat down with him and then gone through his financial situation and his personal circumstances, he's finally realised that his family, he's got 2 young children, could become homeless. Now, I'm not playing the big sympathy card. I'm trying to say, with better advice than he's had in the past, he's actually clear what is at risk now, and that is his motivation. So that was the point I made, clearly quite poorly, hopefully better now.
Thank you. Right, we will pass on to trading standards now, if that's all right.
Thank you. I welcome the changes that you're proposing to put in place with this business, which should make a big difference, I'm sure. As you would have seen on my representations, I've provided a timeline of incidents that we've come across, trading standards ourselves, and also in partnership with the police licensing to inspect the premises, for example. Mr Ahmed was the defendant in a case back in 2018 to 2019 in relation to a different premises concerning illegal tobacco. He was actually prosecuted and sentenced, to 2 years in prison, suspended for 2 years. Following that, he became disassociated with that premises, but then obviously started with the premises we're talking about today. And it was shown that the same sort of behaviour was continuing, although not directly related to the business as such, but in a vehicle nearby that was being used. So different tactics were being used to carry out the same behaviour as was evidenced previously. And then, as warnings have gone on, vapes were starting to be used instead of tobacco, where further non-compliance was found. And yeah, as you can see from the evidence here, it's a further offending and warning that we've given him multiple times. And it just shows what Nikki was saying previously, that he's been given numerous warnings and there's always a new issue that comes about that we believe should have been corrected at an earlier stage, whether it was himself putting in the work or putting in place a manager that might have been able to do that work for him. Those measures don't seem to have been put in place. So basically our concern is that this pattern is going to continue, and we can give as many warnings as we like, but then ultimately we have to escalate the process, and we wouldn't want to force closure on the premises or to take a further prosecution for similar sort of offending. So we're kind of trying to go through this licensing process and making this representation to bring the support of yourself, Mr. Walsgrove, and to help this business comply going forward, to make a real change, basically, to stop that pattern of offending. I'd happily answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions? I've just got one. There was mention in the report around... So I know you've mentioned there was a conviction at a previous business, and then you slightly mentioned about there was some issues failing at this one. Could you just touch a little bit more on that, what you saw that kind of concerned you? Just a little bit more information on that would be great.
Sure. So the issues related to the illegal tobacco at this premises was test purchases from the shop and associated barber next door to it as well. There seems to have been some sort of relationship between the two businesses that used a vehicle in the car park to the rear of the store to actually conceal the tobacco items. So those items were seized during an inspection. I can't actually give you the exact date on that, but it was around 2022. And yeah, so he was effectively given a warning for that one because it wasn't deemed proportionate to take that to prosecution because it was a smaller amount seized. And it was also outside of the suspended sentence period from the prosecution that was given previously.
Thank you. Yeah, I note that there was a warning given and then there was a final warning issued. Does that mean something else happened for you to then proceed with a final warning, or is it just a little bit more official?
Formal warning, I think. Yeah. Yeah, so formal warning is what we would issue as a way of disposing the case, and any further offences following that can then be used as evidence for prosecution or other alternative enforcement actions.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? No? Mr. Walsgrove, do you have any questions? I'm sure you do.
I don't have a question, but I would just like to make an observation on that specific answer given around the car. Although my client was given a warning for that, that is disputed. Had that gone further to a court, my client would have been pleading not guilty. I haven't gone through with a fine-tooth comb all the allegations that have been put because I said to Mariwan, trust me, you've done enough wrong that there's no point picking holes in absolutely everything. But if you had a specific concern about that, which would have a big impact on your decision, that isn't accepted. He did get a warning, so that's accepted, but that wasn't his vehicle. He didn't have anything to do with that.
Thank you. Just want to double check. No questions? No? Oh, yeah, Ben.
Unusual for me to interject and to ask a question at this stage, but can you just clarify what your position is? Just only because it seemed a little bit unclear. Clearly you support the additional conditions that have been proposed, but are trading standards still requesting that this application be refused, or are you happy to endorse it with the conditions now? What's the position?
I think the proposals and the conditions that have been proposed would make a big difference to the business. But at the moment, it's still going to be Mr. Ahmed that's the responsible person, the DPS at the premises, even though it might only be for a short period of time. So I would support the proposals being put forward for this. But equally, depending on the decision of the committee today, it could go either way.
Yeah, that still strikes me as a little bit unclear. Are you asking for this application to be refused, or are you? Which way does the balance tip in your view?
I would say for it to be refused at this stage. Yeah.
Perfect. Right. Now we're going to move on to police licensing, whoever, or both.
Yeah, police licensing are obviously objecting to the application of this on the grounds of protecting children from harm and prevention of crime disorder. There's a sort of a chronology of incidents that have been recorded to us from 2022. So to start with, February 2022, a report was made to the council with regards to store. Appendix 1 refers to this as a report that under 18s are being able to purchase alcohol from the store, and then they go on to cause antisocial behaviour in the area. As a result of this, a compliance check was completed and the venue was found to be breaching in a number of conditions. This was done with a follow-up visit by Portsmouth City Council. August 2023, police received information that a number of sales of alcohol had been made to potential under 18s and no ID checks were witnessed. Following this, police attended the store to retrieve and view the CCTV footage. The premises was found again to be breaching Annex 2 conditions, namely the CCTV condition. Appendix 2 from the police bundle will refer to that email chain detailing that. August 2024, police licensing conducted a visit at the premises and documented their observations and interactions with the staff. Appendix 3 refers to the full details of that visit. In summary, this visit was in response to information received over possible sales of alcohol to under 18s. During this visit, by police licensing, suspected proxy sales were witnessed. There was a lack of ID checks being done in line with the Challenge 25 condition, and there was a lack of refusals log and concerns over the vapes that it had on display. September 2024, Police and Trading Standards conducted a joint visit as part of a test purchase operation. The venue on this occasion did pass the test purchase, but a compliance check at the shop was conducted and found to be breaching a number of Annex 2 conditions. Appendix 4 has the full details completed by Licensing Officer Pollard. September 2024 again, police requested the CCTV footage and off the back of that previous information, and there was a final sort of email relating to that visit saying that Mr. Ahmed was compliant at that time. Prior to the summer of 2025, police attended a number of off-licence premises and hand-delivered a letter outlining expectations around the sale of alcohol and to ensure all policies and processes are up to date and being complied with. And Appendix 6 is a copy of that letter that we hand-delivered in that summer, or beginning of that summer. On August 2025, a test purchase was conducted at the premises. Two 16-year-old volunteers entered the store and were served alcohol by Mr. Ahmed. I know Mr. Walsgrove has detailed that and there's no argument over that. What I would say in relation to that, obviously Mr. Walsgrove made reference to the volunteers arguably looking over 18. I would disagree with that and say they are clearly under the age of 18 and look that. But obviously there's no compliance there with them challenging the 25 or over as part of their conditions. Appendix 7 is the formal police statement which is completed by myself as I was present during the test purchase operation. In relation to that, Mr. Walsgrove made reference to there being SIA outside the store conducting ID checks of people entering during that weekend. I can honestly say when I attended the store to conduct the test purchase op, I didn't see an SIA operative outside. and certainly didn't see anyone doing any ID checks of people coming in there. Appendix 8 is the fixed penalty notice that was issued to Mr Ahmed, which he has since paid in full, and Appendix 9 contains the refusals logs, which we viewed on the day of 26th of August 2025, and there was no entries or refusals in those logs since May 2025. To offer some fairness to the premises, there have been 2 previous police-led test purchases, one in 2023, one in 2024, and they did pass on these occasions. One thing I will add to those 2 test purchase operations, they were conducted outside of the summer season, so not at a busy time, whereas the failed test purchase was conducted during the victorious weekend, probably at the peak of a Saturday afternoon when it's at its busiest. Following on from the test purchase operation in 2025 and the persistent failures that I have listed, this prompted the police to consider a review of the premises licence. This is when we found out, obviously, that there was no licence in place to review. I would suggest that the premises continued trading knowing that there was no licence in place and has obviously committed numerous 136 offences in the process. There appears to be a common theme that the premises is knowingly or being complicit in the sale of alcohol to under 18s and failing to comply with its licence conditions when the licence was in place, and obviously not promoting those licence objectives in protecting children from harm. Any questions?
Yes, I'm going to follow up with what Ben did ask. Are you happy with the proposed conditions or still against?
Our position would be objection and refusal to it, albeit that a couple of those conditions are a step in the right direction.
Members, any questions? I don't have any questions. There was a lot of information in the pack anyway. Let me just tip that off. Mr Walsgrove, do you have any questions? No. Are you going to... No. Fine. Oh, Derek, can I just confirm that Councillor Hugh Mason has pulled his objection? Is that right?
When Mr Walsgrove notified me that they were going back to revert to the original hours, I did speak to Councillor Mason and he was happy with that. So although not officially withdrawn, he's content that the hours or his representation is no longer applicable.
Because it was all about the extension, yep.
It was, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to summing up. We'll go in order. Well, it's up to you. Would you like a little break for a minute before I go to you, or do you want to carry on summing up, or have you got anything else to add, whoever?
I've got nothing else to add.
Yeah? Have you got anything? No? No. Yeah, do you need any time to do any interpretation before you go into sum up, or is he all clear with what you're going to say in your summing up, Mr Walsgrove? Perfect. Amazing. Perfect. We're going to go into your summing up then.
Unfortunately, I do have a little bit more to say, which is probably come as no surprise. It was actually good to have a little bit of positive news from the police saying that there were 2 past test purchases, which I hadn't been aware of before today. So I'll start with that positive note that that's 3 test purchases at the premises, 1 by trading standards, 2 by the police that were passed, and then obviously we've heard about the 1 in August and what I've said about that. I'm asking you in summary to look at the future. He's extremely sorry, is ashamed, is repentant about what's happened in the past, because now I think it's dawned on him the impact this is going to have on other people, his family, his wife and his children. I have put in place, it's right, I'm not going to be there every day, but I've put in place all the right things for him to be able to move forward. And I have spent time with his staff at this shop to make sure they are aware that they, as part of their employment, they are under an obligation to make sure these things are done. So for example, with the refusal book, which you've heard, I don't think there was anything in the refusal book from May to August. So I spoke to the two staff about that, and equally they said, you know, yes, we realise we should have been. Yes, we have been refusing people since May. It's not as if, you know, people come in and they go unchallenged. We are challenging for ID. Sometimes we do sell and sometimes we do refuse. And I've said that they, you know, they must be recorded. And now that this process has happened and I've been able to explain to them the consequences of them not completing that sort of documentation, I think there is a real reset, as I've said before, of not just Mariwan's attitude, but also the two people working for him. So, in summary, we can't change the past, but we can change the future. And I'm saying that with my support, he has done that. I can't be there every day, and I can't, hand on heart, promise you 100% that yes, if you grant this licence, you'll never see him again. There is always going to be a possibility. No one can always give a guarantee this is absolutely going to happen forevermore. But what he knows is, if you grant the licence, there's nowhere to go should he fail in his obligations, because having accepted the vast majority of what's been said, and I said I'm not going to pick through everything because there is stuff that's disputed, but there's enough there that he knows he wasn't doing his job properly. He knows that he could lose all his business and his home. So please grant the application, put him on trust this last time, and if he fails, he knows the consequences.
Thank you. And can I just confirm that all parties are satisfied and have said everything they wanted to? Perfect. Okay, so we are going to go and move into closed session. It's 12:12, so should I say 1 o'clock then? Yeah? Yeah, no problem. So we will not reconvene before, but it might be slightly after, but before 1 o'clock. If you see us, we can't speak to you, so we are not ignoring you. And yeah, I will close for now at 12:13. Thank you.